For us, we were like thinking like $4 or $5 million houses. Like, holy crap! Just a few years later, we were seeing houses that were like 100 million, 150 million. We didn't even know that stuff existed when we started the business. I ended up leaving high school a little bit early. Didn't go to college. Worked at a yogurt shop. Taught me what I didn't want to do.
The way Ori and I see a business, you have to be obsessed with it, you know? Because I was the only one that actually had a successful company at that age.
It's not all roses and rainbows, you know. Like we've gotten each other's face.
The industry's gotten very far, and we're very proud of it because it puts some fire under our ass to keep getting better.
And this was like the first paid gig, you know, and we're thinking that it's like, you know, thousands of dollars in damage.
Gentlemen, thank you so much for coming in. Let's start at the very beginning. How did you guys get into this business, and what was the idea behind it?
Yeah, I think I can give a little bit of background on myself, and then maybe Roy can.
Sure.
I've always been into like music and technical, like computer work, stuff like that. Never really been into filmmaking and, you know, filming at all. I pretty much went to high school, studied a little bit of film in high school. I hated it. I ended up leaving high school a little bit early, didn't go to college. Worked at a yogurt shop, which taught me what I didn't want to do, big time. And after the yogurt shop, I did a lot of music production school, studied audio engineering, really got deeper into music. And then I slowly realized that music touring was not what I wanted to do. I wanted to have like a family and, you know, a base somewhere. I didn't want to just be flying all the time. And I kind of approached Roy with the idea to start OneShot. We originally, I was into drones. We would actually meet up to fly drones when we were younger. We had like the Phantom 1s and the Phantom 2s, and we were just like, we would go to the park and fly them. And I called Roy one day, and Roy actually was running a successful business he'll tell you about, doing events and stuff, and just asked him to start the company. Like, let's just do some drone shoots, charge like a couple $100, and, you know, we thought that there was like a huge like market for it. Not a lot of people doing it in the LA area, and we slowly worked every day. Didn't do much for a year, but slowly the business rolled out. But Roy can give you a little bit of background on himself as well.
So for me, it was it kind of started in high school. In the summers, I'd work for my dad and like his like local business. He was a locksmith, and then from there I realized I don't want to work for anybody. Mm-hmm. And I would go to like these like bar mitzvahs as a kid, like birthday parties, and I would see like these photo booths. And I was also like a huge geek. Loved cameras, loved computers, loved the whole. And even to this day, I like knowing how things work, right? So I remember standing over these photo booth companies and just asking them a million questions, like how does the printer connect to that, and how does that print that out, and like how do you control it, and how does this all work? And I would just go to these events and just not dancing, not talking to any girls, just like literally over the photo booth counter because it was so intriguing to me. And then eventually I started a business with a friend of mine at the time, and we would just do these bar mitzvahs. And every night in high school, instead of going to prom or a birthday party, I would just go and making like $800 and doing an event. And that was a lot of money at the time. Like $800, I was like, wow, this is like a lot of money. And my dad always taught me like to reinvest. So, you know, one event paid for the next event, the next event, and eventually, you know, I got some employees. And up until COVID, I was running that company, right?
Wow, okay.
And I had some background with like corporate. I got into like corporate events like Red Bull, Walmart. I was like an 18-year-old kid. And everybody knew that I was in business, including Ori. Like, we were friends. We'd meet up at the park, fly drones, and he knew that like I was very much into business, not into partying, not into drinking. No high school parties for me, let alone college parties. And during COVID and stuff, it started slowing down. I got really over it because you can only do so many events, so you want to blow your brains out. And then he called me, remember, one day, and we came up with this idea of like, there was no like photo video website, like all-in-one solution back then. It was like you hire an expensive videographer, you hire a photographer, and maybe you'll do a website for the property. And we were like, dude, we could do this. This is really cool. Like every agent is looking for all three. Now every company does it, but like back then it wasn't very popular. And we kind of just started from there. We're like, all right, well, I have no idea how to shoot video. We both know how to fly drones, which is cool, right? And I have some photo experience from my photo booth company, but like we didn't really know what we were getting into, right? And we would always just meet up at his parents' house and just practice flying drones. We bought a gimbal, started shooting, started learning. Back then there was no Ronin S or like Osmo where you just walk with it. It was like our backs were hurting after like 30 minutes of shooting.
The Ronin M was painful to use.
Yeah.
That was the OG Ronin.
Yep. And we had a dream of like becoming national and having like hundreds of employees and franchising and all this stuff. And then I'm sure you're going to ask us later like how our journey has been, but we very quickly learned that we have to, figure out how to get there, and we're still learning. We're not there yet.
Right.
So, but yeah, that's kind of like a very quick summary.
How you guys started. Why did you guys decide to get into the real estate and residential space?
So the funny thing about Roy and I is our families are both really into real estate.
Okay.
Both of our families have invested in real estate. Roy's dad develops a little bit, so he gave us like some of our test projects like before anybody would hire us. I've always loved real estate just in general, like the economics behind it, the access that it gives you. Real estate in itself is a really interesting business outside of just the production side. I'm sure you've been through it all.
Right.
But we didn't even know that there was houses that are as expensive as like the ones that we've shot. When for us we were like thinking like $4 or $5 million houses. Like holy crap, that's like the richest people in the world are living in those houses. And just a few years later, we were seeing houses that were like 100 million, 150 million, and we didn't even know that stuff existed when we started the business. So the business really taught us about the market and what the limits are, how rich people actually are. To have like a $100 million house just in LA and have like several other houses in the country. But I think that Roy and I both really leaned into real estate just through like our families being into it, our background. My brother is an industrial broker. He used to do residential real estate. So he also, the first night that Roy and I decided we're going for the business, I was sitting by a fireplace with my brother, and he's like, hey, dude, like, I know you brought this idea up to Roy last month. Let's meet tonight and make the manifesto and just go for it.
That's really interesting. That was actually going to bring me on to the next question of when you guys got together and decided to do this, was there a business plan? Did you guys sit down and say, we're going to do this, this, and this, and it's going to lead to so on? And what was your vision? Where did you see the business going?
You want to go through it?
Yeah, so for me, like, as a kid, I always had, like, every other teenager was interested in, like, starting a business with me because I was the only one that actually had a successful company at that age, or they thought it was successful. So everybody would always approach me, but nobody was serious, right? And I was like, and I would waste a lot of time and excitement. Like, as a kid, I still love starting businesses. But it would be really disappointing when like they come up to me with an idea, I'm serious about it, and then the second day they're like fried and they're not down to work on it. So he calls me at like 8, 9 o'clock at night, and I'm just walking my dog. He's like, dude, come over, let's talk about this plan we had a month ago. I was like, for sure. I went there, we talked about it, and I was like, we kind of talked about it like on a broad level, what we could do, how we could do it, like kind of some concepts. And I was like, for sure, dude, call me tomorrow, let's meet up, let's start a business plan, right? And that was like kind of like my test for Ori to see if like, is this guy gonna be serious or is he gonna forget about this tomorrow morning? And he called me and we like sat there and we put together a business plan. And a business plan doesn't have to be a one-on-one. I mean, you know this, but like a lot of people don't.
Right.
It doesn't have to be exactly what's gonna happen, right? Just to kind of make sure you're on the same page in terms of like the game plan, right? So we had like a 1-year business plan, maybe 5 clients. 3-year business plan, maybe 15 clients. 5 years, maybe an office, Very, very rough. Just having some like accomplishments and doing a little bit of research on our competitors and what they charge and what we could charge. And that was kind of how we dove into it.
But you did have a general business plan, which I think is really, really important because I think if you can outline where you want to go, somehow you end up there, even if it's not exactly where you want to go or where you plan to go, somehow things kind of align and you end up moving in the direction you do, which is really important. And the other point that you made is there are so many people that would love to start a business and they talk and talk and talk and years go by and it doesn't happen because the action plan doesn't happen.
Yeah.
You can sit down and write everything on paper, but there's a series of actions that need to come afterwards, and they need to be consistent over a prolonged period of time for those businesses to become successful. So it's really interesting you saying that.
Yeah, Roy and I, we started working in my guest house in the back house. We started kind of like taking competitors' videos, cutting them up, making our own edits. It would take us literally a week to take an existing video and make a new edit of it, and the end result was terrible.
Right.
You know, like then we were really excited about it because it was like a proof of concept. We were like, crap, like we could actually do this. Now we just need to figure out the filming part. But it was really like we sat in that guest house 8 hours a day for about 11 or 12 months before any paid work came in. And in that time, we were still doing a lot of, you know, test projects on the field, kind of figuring out the marketing side, the presentation of the business. And it wasn't a natural process at all. I mean, it was like painful, and there was a lot of days where we were going to like 11 p.m. and we were like, damn, dude, like we still don't have any clients. We're not even trying to charge that much. You know, like our work is okay, like to the point where like we were doing as good of work as our competitors. And it just was a really tough process. It took a long time to even get that first paying client. But because we had family in the real estate business, we could kind of finesse that a little bit into learning a little bit faster, I guess. Mm-hmm. But you know, looking back on it, we could have probably offered like any top agent free work and gotten in and probably sped up that process.
Right.
Yeah.
So during that time, did you guys think about giving up? Did you think this isn't a great business? Especially, I know business is in that first year, 2 years, depending on how long the difficult part is. I know myself, I've started businesses, and there are times where you question your own sanity and you think, why am I even doing this? Maybe I'm better off getting a job and working my way up the corporate ladder. But I think when you have that business spirit, you somehow try and work it out and move forward. And it's the option of going and working for someone. I've been working pretty much for myself since I was 23. And the option of me working for someone has never been there. It's just, for me, I used to think I'd rather have a shop just selling, I don't know, drinks or sweets and work for myself than have to go and into an office. But that's just me. But the process is difficult. It's not easy, and it comes with a lot of challenges. People who think they're going to start a business and it's going to be a success overnight. And it's challenging both physically, mentally, emotionally, financially, because you go through a lot. Like you said, the first year you barely got paid. And I'd love to hear, how did you guys survive in the first year when you didn't have money coming in? And was there times you wanted to give up?
So pretty much, just to answer your first part of the question, that kind of all comes back to the business plan, right? And I always tell Ori, I was like, dude, we have to focus on the small wins, right? We can't just let ourselves get demotivated because we didn't make $50,000 in revenue last month. Like, dude, let's talk about like the small wins. Like, what did we do, you know, over the last 11 months in that guest house? All right, we made a logo. That's awesome. Most new businesses struggle on designing a logo. Cool, we have a website that's up and running. Like, really take it down. Like, don't be so hard on yourself and like focus on the small stuff, right? Oh, dude, we filmed a video. Oh, we took X's video and reworked it, and we made a better product. That's a small win. We're taking baby steps, right? But at the same time, realizing the mission at hand. It's like, okay, like you were saying, the word action plan. Ori and I have an action plan. Every time we have a big endeavor, right? Most recently, we're opening this like Miami location. It's like, okay, that's the end goal, right? And we know where we're at currently. How do we fill in the pieces? You know, so you have like the end and beginning, right, and filling in the pieces of that action plan, right? So the middle pieces are all those small wins. It's like, okay, maybe first getting to Miami, maybe first meeting some agents, maybe then doing an event, you know? Those are like all the small pieces of the pie to get to like opening a Miami location, which is the hard, big one that's so demotivating because it could take a year, it could take 2, it could take 3. Right. But if we focus on the small wins of like, oh, we just did a trade show. Oh, we just met 5 new clients, potential clients. We took them out for drinks. Then you really start to feel less unmotivated and like depressed about your situation. So I hope that kind of answers the question.
Yeah, no, totally. Yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, with that said, like we were thinking about quitting all the time.
Right.
Like it was because, you know, like 1 month goes by, you're like, okay, I need a little bit more time to get work. You know, 2 months goes by, you're like, all right, maybe we need to rethink this part. But like, you know, at the 8th, 10th, 11th month, you're already like, damn, like, are we in the right business? Like, maybe we should think about other stuff. And meanwhile, you're getting good at all this stuff, marketing, copy, building websites, filming, and there's all these corporate opportunities and like salary paying jobs. Like maybe we should go do that, you know, like now that we have these skills. But all it took was like one paid job, and it kept us going for like months at a time. And even when we started getting those paid jobs, it would be several weeks between them where there would be no paid work, and we're just trying to stay busy and try to stay motivated. So it was an interesting time.
I think for us, and even we do it today, is like capitalizing on every opportunity. That's like my biggest advice is like, you know, the second we got that paid job or we got access to like some farmhouse in Studio City, it's like, okay, they hired us to do video there. Let's do photos there too. Let's make reels there too. Let's put a website there. Let's get headshots of ourselves taken there, right? Really making the most of every opportunity to like always think about the future. Like Ori and I are very like long-term thinkers. We're always thinking 5-10 steps ahead at any given moment, you know? Right. So like even right now, we went to this conference that we were telling you about in Miami. We got content of the conference, right? Because later we might make like a vlog. Maybe we will, maybe we won't. We got some time lapses of us setting up. Maybe we'll make some content with it, maybe we won't, you know? We did a giveaway to get some data from people, right? Maybe we'll do an email blast to all these new agents. Maybe we will, maybe we don't, but at least we have the opportunity to, and we capitalized on the fact that we were there instead of just, you know, having a booth and saying, this is OneShot, welcome, meet us, you know? So that's kind of like our...
I think also in the beginning, we had like, not even just in the beginning, the first like 5 years of the business, we had like serious main character issues where we thought everybody cared about everything we were doing all the time. And we got really humbled, you know, like, and I think it's actually really like freeing when you realize that no one gives a crap what you're doing. And
are you talking about in terms of the quality of the work? Or?
In terms of just the presentation of the business and, you know, who we are, like we realized that, you know, we originally wanted to do like all this educational content, have like this whole infrastructure around the business, which is great, you know, and I think that we will eventually get to that, but I think we were thinking about it a little bit too early as opposed to just executing a lot of projects and letting our actions speak a little bit louder than our words.
Do you think you guys were guilty of what you're saying there, of thinking that you can do too much at the beginning rather than just focusing on a few things? Because again, from my own personal experience, I know you go into these businesses and you think I'm going to do these 10 things over the next year, and then you eventually realize your time is limited and you can only get good at certain things. So you become good at some things, and then eventually some of the other ideas come in and so on. So were you guys in that same position?
Roy and I, when we started the business, and one of the mistakes in our original business plan was like, we wanted a big company, right? We wanted a big company, and what we meant by a big company is like an Apple or like a Tesla. We looked at these companies that we love because we're like total tech nerds. We're like, look at how they're operating, look at how they have a division for this and for that, and look at how efficient they are. When in reality, you know, like once we got to a point where we had tons of employees, we were like, this is terrible. You know, our full-time job, you know, we've never built a corporation before. We've never built a structure of 300, 400, 500 employees, and it was like, it was holding us back from doing a lot of work, and it required us to go back on kind of the philosophy of like, do we want a big company? Like, what is a big company, right? Is it a lot of employees? Is it a small number of really talented employees? And that's kind of what we lean towards today, is like talent and quality over quantity. And it took us, it was a very painful learning process to realize that we don't want that, you know, or maybe we'll get that later.
I think the metric that a lot of people use at the very beginning is your turnover. So they look at the amount of money that's coming in and they judge the business success by that. And eventually over time you realize it's not about how much you turn over, it's how much you're left with at the end, and the amount of work you're going to have to do for the amount you're left with. So that's an interesting thing that I learned in business as well. But going back to where you guys were, first year, you said you were hardly getting paid. At what point did the business actually start taking off and you guys thought to yourself, hey, we have something?
Maybe you can talk about
that. We started kind of doing some work for my dad and for his brother, and we were slowly starting to promote the work. And we were like, you know what? At this point, we just need to work on our portfolio. Like, we need something to show, right? We don't have enough projects on there. Like, you know, people are only going to hire us if they have enough work. So we started doing work for either super cheap or for free, you know. And a lot of creators, I've seen mixed opinions on it, but for us, it's always the work tried and true. We just gave away work for free. And that started, you know, once we did like, you know, 1 project, 2 projects, 3 projects for free, we started building a portfolio and people saw what our talent. And at the time, it was not as, the quality standard wasn't where it is today. Today you have these really big, like a lot of our competitors have really beautiful footage, really clean work. Like the industry's gotten very far and we're very proud of it because it makes us like put some fire under our ass to keep getting better.
Right.
But at the time, the standard was pretty low. So like the second, and Ori and I are quality like freaks. You know, like if the footage is not silky smooth, it has to be reshot. You know, and at the time that wasn't the case. People were putting out content that was just not that.
Right.
So
It was really easy to compete in the beginning. You
Right.
know, it was just like as long as you have a camera, as long as you can, you know how to lay out a video and
Right.
kind of film semi-smooth footage, because all of our OG videos are like pretty rough looking back on it.
Right.
But looking back on it compared to a lot of the competition we had locally, it was great, and we were charging half as much. You know, and all those people that we originally onboarded as free or like semi-paying clients, they ended up becoming like an ambassador for our brand, which like amplified our reach like
Right.
instantly, big time. You know.
So at that time, and that was, I would say, like 2017, 2018, we got super busy, and Ori and I we're always very hungry. But at that moment, we didn't understand burnout. We didn't understand, long-term, finance and what happiness, like we keep talking about, and making sure we're happy. We would do like just Ori and I like 3-4 shoots a day. It would be like shoot at 9 a.m., shoot at 12 p.m., shoot at 3 p.m., and then we're both just editing into the night, and we're waking up again the next day at 8 a.m. to leave to our 9 a.m.
That's
job.
intense.
And then Saturday and Sunday, like, these realtors want to shoot on a Sunday before their open house. Fine, we'll do it. Like whatever we got to do. So it started getting really busy, and busy not in the sense of a lot of dollars, just in a lot of projects and a lot of volume. And that was part of our business plan, was like to do a lot of volume for really cheap, and eventually take those small earnings, those small margins, and amplify it, start a big company and all this stuff. And then, we very quickly learned that, wait a second, we're not happy, we're miserable, we're getting into arguments between ourselves just because we're too overworked. So we had to take a step back and say, okay, how are we gonna? And that's the important part about this whole thing, is like accepting failure, accepting like, all right, we're too high on ourselves. We thought what we did was right. Let's just admit we were wrong and take a step back. And that's something Ori and I, with a business partner, everyone says, don't get into business with your friends. Don't get into business with your family. Because it's hard to separate work and friendship, But as long as you're willing to, not necessarily forgive and forget, but like accept it. Like, all right, if Ori thinks I did something wrong, hear him out. Don't be so cocky. Don't have such a big ego. You know what, dude, maybe I was wrong. Let's rework it. How would you do it,
Part of, because we were so busy at the time, we really had to separate like our big picture time and our operational time. So what we started doing pretty early on, like 2019, is we started doing like fireside chats between Roy and I. Literally, Roy and I sitting in the same place that we founded the company, right near a fireplace, having like a tea and just sitting down, not worrying about the operation, what's going on tomorrow, but just thinking big picture. And that's when we started realizing like, hey, it took us years. It was like hundreds of meetings of like us. It wasn't like instantly. We started realizing like, yo, we're overworking ourselves. We're not being as efficient as possible. We're wasteful in a lot of different places, and there's all these markets that we want to hit, but we have 0 hours in the day to actually even think about it. So we kept doing these fireside chats, and slowly we kind of reworked our strategy and our pricing model and kind of our target client, and we started shifting our business, and it's been shifting for a long time. I mean, we've been slowly.
It still shifts and changes,
constantly in
on a
flux.
yearly basis.
Right.
Our goals, and that's what's important. Like we don't sit down to write a new business plan each time, but Ori and I, like on a daily basis, are talking about the big picture. Like, what's the plan? Making sure we're aligned on our values.
Evolving and just making small adjustments to go in the direction you want to. Regarding your partnership, it's one of those topics where most people say don't get into partnership, period. With your friends and family, never. I've had 2 partners in 2 of the businesses that I've done, and it's definitely got its positives and it's got its negatives. I think there's a whole bunch of different nuances to what makes a partnership work, in my opinion. And one of the main ones is that you're both on the same page and you both have the same work ethic. The other key for me is to be able to have some kind of dispute resolution, because you're going to get into conflict. It's the natural process of working with someone day in, day out. How's the partnership been for you guys? And then when you get into these dispute resolutions, how do you resolve them?
Yeah, I mean, I look at a partnership the same way I look at like a relationship with a girlfriend or anything like that. Roy and I have a lot of transparency between us. We're very clear with each other when we're unhappy. We're very clear with each other when things are going right, and we try to share knowledge. I'm not going to lie and say that there hasn't been hard points. There's been big disagreements between Roy and I, and there still is. I mean, it's just part of like,
Right.
I have disagreements with my wife or my parents, but I think a big part of having successful partnership for Roy and I has been like, you wake up the next day, meet up, kind of put the past behind you and continue moving forward. And that's something that we kind of align with big time. Like first of all, we look at our partnership as like we're like a power team, right? We have the same interest in mind. We're 50-50 partners. Like we both have our success in mind every day, all the time. And we try to like align our like daily activities and, you know, our meetings and all that just to push the company forward. You know, I think when a partnership has synergy, it's like double the power, double the speed that you can move forward. So I guess like for Roy and I, it's been like a big time strategic partnership, and we realized early on, because a lot of people that do what we do, they're like freelancers and they're a small creative team maybe, but we realized like having two guys that are 100% hungry, ready to go, willing to do anything it takes to grow the business is a lot better than a single person.
Right.
You know?
I think in terms of the energy you get from the other person, sometimes one person's down, the other one's got more energy, the creativity, the friendship, doing things with someone like you guys have just turned up together. I'm sure that journey was much more fun than sitting in a car and going by yourself. And I think that they're the things that are the positive part of partnerships. And I think if you have the right partnership, it's not double. I think it's sometimes triple, quadruple the amount of work and the amount of results that come out of it.
Yeah.
And it has a lot of benefits also in terms of, say, for example, one of you wants to go away for a week. The other person can look after the business. And there's massive advantages, in my opinion, with the right partner.
Yep.
What I would say is, and I have not a different take, I agree with everything you said, but another side of it,
Right.
a big issue for me, and I deal with it, and I'm sure everybody else, it's like ego and jealousy, and it's like, wait, like I'm working so much harder than he is, right? And he's not, and that's, Roy and I are very transparent, you know, like, you know, he just did this big move to Miami and we're opening our office there. And yeah, I was probably working many more hours than he was. And a lot of people like would think like, well, doesn't that upset you? I was like, nah, I like know Ori is probably up till 1 a.m. at night on his laptop after traveling for 16 hours. Like that's who he is, you know, and I'm not going to like guilt trip him for that.
Right.
It's and same thing with me. Like I don't like working late into the night. I get home at like 9 p.m. unless there's something where like a big opportunity. I'm going to sleep. Like I prioritize my personal life. You know, we have different schedules, and I think that's very important to know who your partner is and know where their boundaries are. You know, to not get into these arguments and into these disputes over like time management and how you guys. You know, we're two different human beings.
Right.
We have a lot of shared interests and shared values, but we prioritize different things and we work differently. And you know, he knows how I work, and I know how he works, and it's not. We're not clocking in, clocking out.
Right.
You know, so as hard as it is, you know, I'm human. I'm sure there's points where he feels like I'm underworking, and there's points where I feel like he's underworking,
Right.
or we're not equal.
Yeah.
But as long as you're sharing that same vision, you have that same business plan, and we're both in it, you know,
Right.
to make things work, make things happen, it's very helpful.
Yeah.
The other thing I wanted to say, I just didn't want to cut you guys off, was like, with a partner, it's someone to vent to. You know, if I have a client that's driving me crazy, if I'm alone in the business, who am I going to complain to? Like my girlfriend, like she doesn't really know because she's not in it.
Right.
You know, she can't help me make like a really good decision on like the future of the company. Today, if I have a client that drives me absolutely crazy, I pick up the phone, I just vent to Ori, because he's one, my friend, but also my business partner. He might calm me down, he might like tell me like, dude, you're 100% valid, like let's take a night to like think about it, let's write a response to your email tomorrow morning. You know what I mean?
It's also really good to have someone that knows your business, knows how you operate, knows you on a very like close level, and they can call you out on your BS. That's like been the biggest thing with the partnership, because with a business, any business, you're always, you have like a hypothesis on how something should work. You test it out in the field, and then you kind of learn if you were right or wrong, right? And to have someone that kind of can speed up that process, bring in their own opinion, especially if you're open-minded, it calls you out on your BS like 10 times faster. You know, it saves you a ton of time and just like reflecting on thought. And also, we hold each other accountable to these action plans. When we set out to achieve a goal, it's like, hey, we haven't worked on it today. Like, let's get back on that. And it works both ways, you know. So
yeah, accountability, I think, is really, really important. It's nice to have someone that you feel you're responsible to sometimes, because sometimes you tend to work even harder when you know someone else is relying on you than it's just yourself. So that definitely is a massive point in terms of partnership, and to the point you were making. That's why at the very beginning I said one of the key factors for me is to have someone that has got the same energy as you and has got the same work ethic as you, because I think a lot of the dispute comes from that, and that's happened to me, where I feel like I'm working this many hours, the other person isn't, or he feels like, well, hold on, why have you taken 3 days off? And that can become a contentious point unless you're able to resolve them and say, hey, well, let's not look at the hours and let's look at how much work we've actually done and how much work we've accomplished. But if you do get into major disputes, how do you guys resolve them? Do you have a third party, or do you have
a mediator?
We literally will go at it. Roy's really into, like, Roy has a lot of similar values to me about transparency. Like, just because I'm, getting in his face, and like, it's not all roses and rainbows. Like, we've gotten each other's face. We've never physically fought, but we've gotten close to it, and it's just. I think we just have a lot of similar values. When I'm honest with Roy about being unhappy about a certain thing, or we're just trying to hash out a situation, instead of defending himself and bouncing back, I think that he absorbs it, and I try to do the same. We both have different temperaments, but it's definitely it was a learning process in the beginning. I think today we figured it out, and I think that you generally when business is going well and you're just doing your best, I think when you have someone that's like rational, they understand that,
right.
And they're willing to work through that. And we've had it both ways. Like Roy and I've always said, like, as long as we try our best in any situation, it's like we're happy with each other.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of like the mantra that we have. On the hard days, we went to a 3-hour meeting with a group, and they were super nice and they're super down to book, but they don't actually convert in the end. It's like, well, we did our best. Let's go out for drinks. Let's go have some fun now.
So those small wins,
Right.
That's what I was getting at. Like, celebrating those small wins of, like, you know what, dude, we did our best. The results might not be what we were hoping for, but as long as you put in 100% effort, I put in 100% effort, I know I left no stone unturned in terms of what I can accomplish, then it is what it is. Like, fate will decide and, for us, it's like, I really, whenever I'm annoyed or upset or there's something I want to, hash out between us, I tend to think about the big picture. All right, is this really worth, like, a huge argument right now? Is it worth exploding on Ori right now over something annoying that he did? No, it's not gonna, like, let me tell it to him in, like, a more calm setting. When we're both happy, or when, like, the situation's passed. A lot of the time sleeping on it, like, that's a big thing that the word sleeping on it, taking, like, especially decisions, and things that are, because a lot of our arguments are like, he has an opinion on how to handle a situation, I have my opinion on how to handle a situation. It might be different, right? But ultimately, we're one brand, so we have to align on, like, what we're doing here, how we're answering this client, or what equipment we're buying, or how we're dealing with this employee, or whatever the hell it is, right? Just sleep on it. Take a second to, like, decompress from the situation, have a night to think about it, wake up in the morning, and then reconvene and see where you're at. And usually that tends to work.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point of calming down and relaxing, because a lot of times it's emotions, and when there's emotions involved, sometimes you end up becoming irrational.
Yeah.
So when you take the night, you sleep, you wake up in the morning, and it's like, let's look at a bigger picture to your point. And I think it's a very mature way of looking at it, rather than trying to stick to every small issue. Let's look at where are we going, and what's the resolution to this, and how can we get there? So, yeah.
Yeah, I think that for us, when we're having the most fights when the business is eating shit. That's I don't know if you have this, you've had partners, it's like everything's good when you're making money and making, big strides, and when things start to become hard and painful, that's when you start to fight. And I think that's where Roy and I actually have outlasted some of the other partnerships that we've seen, like in the business and other businesses. Like, we understand that pressure is healthy and it's like a part of the process, and we're like, even if we have a hard day, it's just like embracing the pressure, and
it's also learning from it. Like, I have so many scenarios in my head of, like, the past and points in OneShot where things were not as great as they might seem on the outside. Either in whatever division it might be in the business, where I learned from it. I learned that, okay, that was how we handled it back then. We had this issue. I'm going to take that into account next time there's an issue, right? And just taking each opportunity of, like, failure and learning from it as fast as possible, right? We've been doing this for almost 10 years now. So there's 10 years of experience where he experienced it just like I experienced it. It's not like, oh, well, dude, when I had this photo booth company 15 years ago, I did things this way. And he was like, well, I wasn't there for that. I don't know what you're talking about. I didn't share that experience. So I don't know. I don't think that's right. We both went through the same stuff for 10 years. So like I can reference something that happened 6 years ago. Remember when X, Y, and Z happened and we handled it like this? And we'd be like, oh yeah, dude, that's right. Let's take that same perspective on it because it worked. So just things like that.
Right. Along this 10-year journey, at what point did you guys get into the luxury real estate space?
We got into it, I would say, like year 2 or 3, because we live in an area, we're from the San Fernando Valley. I mean, the second you go into Encino, Tarzana, you're already getting like $4 or $5 million houses in Encino. Now there's like $20 million development. So we're always surrounded by it. Roy lived in Tarzana, so it was like you just drive up the street and you have like $10 million homes south of the boulevard. So we knew that it was a market we wanted to get into. We didn't realize how crazy it got because I barely even came to the west side. I wasn't growing up in this area, so I didn't even know that there was 40, 50, $100 million homes. And we slowly started kind of working with groups that were maybe the top guy that owns the brokerage was listing, 100 or $50 million homes. And we slowly kind of worked our way into those spaces just by creating ambassadors, right? So we would deliver just the best work possible to these groups, and slowly they would recommend us to their higher and higher level realtors, and suddenly we're doing, a 40-person team's work, right? So a lot of the biggest clients we've brought in was referrals. We did a lot of advertisement, we did a lot of organic stuff on like Instagram and on Facebook, but really the things that have brought in the highest paying and most pivotal clients was referrals and just having someone that can advocate for you. Yeah. And it took like everything we had to, when we knew we had a client, we would always try to deliver good work, but when we had a client that was like, okay, they're working under this guy who's like runs this whole division, this whole area, geographically, and they're doing high-end listings all the time. It's like we have to step up our game for those people.
Yeah, I think for us what has always worked is like under promise, over deliver, right? Like we'd go do a photo shoot and promise the client 35 photos. We shot 50, 60, 70 photos. Just deliver them. Right. Just do it. Like put in that extra effort in editing and post and deliver it to them. Like really try your best. Our best is delivering everything we got and editing everything we got and just giving it to the client. And people started to see that. People started to see like, oh wow, like OneShot, like I hire them for this and they also give you this and they give me that. And we just did that over and over and over again. And eventually, you get to the top guy at that office. All the people under him are using him. He's like, oh wow, okay, I'm gonna give him a shot on this one property of mine, And then we would do that and do the same thing. It's like, all right, so and so hired us for this $20 million house, just a video. We're gonna do photos, we're gonna do reels, we're gonna do this, we're gonna do that. Deliver to him everything, and we promised him within 7 days we're gonna give it to him in 2 days. Really blow their socks off. Like, how the hell did they get this done? But that was like that energy that like every night, like. I remember I would find the latest Starbucks to be open because I like to work at a coffee shops, and I would stay there till midnight with just working, just making sure we over exceed expectations on every single project. I could have been done at 9 p.m., but I waited till the place was closed, maximizing the hours and delivering the best, trying the best I could to make the client happy. So.
Do you guys remember the very first home that you walked into and you shot and you were like, wow?
I guess we Donna Duarte.
Yeah, that doesn't count. That was my dad's build. But I would say probably that in Studio City, the house we did for David Chemish.
Oh.
Where you were we did those like continuous shots with the Xeon.
Yeah, we flooded that house.
Yeah, that was crazy.
Yeah. Hopefully David doesn't see this, but we filmed a house in Studio City off of Ventura. It was like a farmhouse. I think it was hitting the market at like $4 million. It was probably the first actual paid shoot. We got him through a family friend, a longtime family friend. He was like a local realtor in the San Fernando Valley. And he was working with a lot of developers in the Studio City area. There was like a big influx of properties getting built there, like nice farm homes and like small moderns and stuff like that. And basically we had been shooting like at our family's houses and at our own houses and just kind of testing out the gear. And this was like the first paid job. Like we gave him a package. We had him booked through our CRM. It was like legit, right? And we had an idea on how to execute the house. We really did it was pretty smooth. The work was definitely harder then. It took us a couple days to actually shoot it versus like a couple hours like we do now. But what had happened at some point was we used to turn on sinks when we were filming in these houses to get a sink shot with the water running. Right. And Roy was there helping me. Originally, I was doing a lot of the video. Roy was doing a lot of the photos. So Roy was kind of doing some photos and helping me out with the sinks. And I had left the sink on downstairs and went upstairs. And Roy didn't realize that the sink was on. He went and continued doing photos. And at some point, I come downstairs and the whole island is just full of water, and it's like a waterfall. It is a brand new house.
He goes to like put his gimbal down, and just a huge puddle. And
yeah, it was was just going everywhere. And this was like the first paid gig, and we're
freaking out.
We're thinking that it was like thousands of dollars in damage. And I'll never forget, I like sent Roy to Bed Bath & Beyond. We started using the staging towels to dry everything off. Roy went to Bed Bath & Beyond and bought like another $200 worth of towels because Bed Bath & Beyond only had like high-end towels. And we cleaned it up and we dried everything out and we let the client know. He was totally understanding, which if I was in his position, I don't know if I would have been, but he was understanding. There was no long-term damage over there. And they ended up selling the house with our content, Wow. So it was as rough as the project could have been. Took us a few days to film. We flooded the kitchen pretty much, but we kind of just made it through that project, and it slowly got easier. Like we were stacking up the projects, and it would get easier and easier every time. But the first ones were.
But you learn from that experience, right? Like now we know, like you turn on the sink, turn off the sink. Like that's just part of the protocol, and all those. You start stacking up those experiences and you start to really refine your craft and focus on the art. That's a logistical issue, right? That was just something that rattled us on a logistics perspective, right? It wasn't like a camera breaking or dropping a gimbal or the camera, crapping itself out. It was a logistical issue that, could have affected our performance as artists and as creatives. But, we learned from it. And I think that was probably our first shoot that I could remember that we got paid for, and I was like, wow, this is a nice house. It had those like clean modern finishes and those like fancy sconces that you see at these farmhouses and like all that.
And we literally did, thousands of sub-$1 million homes before we were consistently doing luxury.
Wow. That's really interesting for people to hear that. For you to get to the big boy stage, you have to start off smaller and work your way up and perfect your art. That's so, because I didn't know that. I thought you guys maybe started. Even me that knows, that people don't genuinely start like that. I thought maybe you guys started at around 5 million, 10 million. You had some link in, but hearing your story and how, you're starting at the very, very bottom and now you're effectively the pinnacle of your industry.
The philosophy for us, and we always told this to our filming guys and our editing guys, is like if we can make a sub-$1 million property look really good, the momentum we'll have when we get to 5, 10, $20 million properties is going to be like, we're just going to blow their socks off.
Because those properties already look really good. You walk into one of those $5-10 million houses, they're very well lit, have the coolest finishes, have the coolest features, have like super cool theaters and all these things. It looks good on camera, even like on an iPhone, without any fancy work in editing or shooting, right? But because we learned how to shoot in like these like, very simple single family homes, $300,000, $400,000, we learned how to walk with the camera and get these really cool continuous shots going from one area to the next area to the next area. Learn how to do detail shots, focusing on like the fixtures of that property. And
go ahead.
I was just gonna say it was like a very small level thing, right? But we learned the art and the craft, and by the time we got to like those $5-10 million homes, it was like, okay, well, we've already done this. It just now everything looks a lot better and it's a lot easier because it's naturally.
How was your equipment growth? Changed from an equipment you use, an amount of money that you've spent on it grown, or changed from when you guys started in the first year?
This guy drives me crazy to this day.
Yeah, I mean, long story short, we've switched our setup maybe like realistically like 30-40 times. Wow. Like full setup change. Funny enough, like the first cameras we were filming on, we ended up filming on like years later because we went through like Panasonic and Sony, and we went to DJI and we went to Zhiyun, and we kept switching up our gear and the combination, and we would like test it in the field, and it was some setups were really, really hard to work with, but had really good results. Some setups were really easy to work with and had bad results. And slowly we kind of figured out like a prime setup. And even till today, it's like constantly changing. You know, we always buy new gear when it comes out because Roy and I are just nerds. You know, we like to try like the new Ronin that you guys have in here. We're trying out the new one right now.
How is it?
It's really nice.
Yeah?
Yeah, it's really nice. I mean,
We're going to upgrade as well. We were talking about
it doesn't have a great IBIS, so like a lot of Z-axis movement.
Right.
It's kind of annoying.
The new Osmo, you meant to
Yeah,
say.
the new Osmo.
Yeah.
It's called the Osmo Pocket, I think.
Yeah.
And I mean, we're always trying out new gear. You know, like we've spent hundreds of thousands of dollars, not even on a lot of videographers. You know, like this is one videographer setup, just testing it over and over again. We've spent a lot of money on it, and we've tried a few different.
Do you think equipment matters to that extent, or is it about how it's shot rather than the latest and the latest and the latest camera constantly and lenses?
It really depends on the scale. If you're just one guy, you can really get pretty far with almost any setup. Like it really, when you start to go to like 3-4 videographers, some people come in less trained, some people are already trained. It becomes more important. So like when we were onboarding new videographers, you have to provide them with gear that's like on point, you know, like something that's going to work out of the box, not require like a huge learning curve. Like for 5 years, we were filming on a Zhiyun gimbal that only I could set up. You know, like I was the only one that knew how to wrap the HDMI cord the right way and pair the remote. And if something happened on site, I could quickly service it.
It was like a million different pieces. It was not very streamlined.
Right.
DJI really made a big difference when they brought out the Ronins, the handheld Ronins, like the Ronin SC and the Ronin RS2. Those were like a big leap, I think, in like the workflow for it. And I would say like if you're a one-man crew, like gear is a lot less important because you could spend the time learning your setup, and you know, it's even if it's a complex setup, you figure out how to set it up quickly. You know how to work with it. You know what its limitations are. And today, you know, we try to optimize for equipment that anybody could pick up and just easily film with. You know, and that's kind of part of like we realized that when we started hiring new people, it's like we can't give them something that it takes a month just to learn how to set this thing up. And you know, any problem that's going on site, they have to call us while we're in a meeting and kind of like throw us off of our schedule for that day. But definitely the Ronins were a big upgrade, and we realized that we wanted to go smaller and leaner like very early on, because I was like legit getting back issues from some of the bigger setups, especially when we were getting into like higher end stuff. And it was
One thing I'll say with the equipment, right? This is like, I think it's very important just to the partnership thing, to understand each other's roles, right? Since the beginning, you know, we know our roles. Like I'll handle like customers and branding and marketing, right? And he leads technology, infrastructure, gear. Like we have our roles in our company. You know, we wear many hats, but you know, as a partner, it would be very frustrating. You know, or you'd be like, "Dude, this new Ronin came out. We have to go get it." And I'll be like, "What's wrong with our setup? Or the videos look great. You know, why spend these thousands of dollars right now?" You know, but if you're not improving and getting better and going with the times and technology, then you're falling behind.
Right.
You know, and that's something that we always, you know, this new drone will come out, and although there's nothing wrong with our drones today, you know, maybe this X, Y, and Z feature could apply to us. You know, I remember when we bought like the Mavic 3. We were shooting on the Mavic 2 Pro at the time, right? And we tried it, and it looked great, and you know, I think we ended up returning it because it just didn't. Something about it wasn't right, and that's Ori's division. So you really, you know, you have to trust your partner. I trust him wholeheartedly with every equipment decision we make, you know. But we're constantly, you know, seeing the new technology come out, seeing how it could apply to our business, seeing if it works, trying things out, you know. And if they work great, we'll upgrade the whole fleet. But we really try. You know, Ori's our lead videographer because we're the two founding partners, and you know, I'm lead photographer, he's the lead videographer with all of our other guys. So we'll try it, you know, if it's a photo upgrade, I'll try it and I'll come back with feedback and tell Ori what I think. And if it's a video, he'll try it and come back to me with like, listen, Roy, here's the positives, pros and cons with this setup, you know, and then we can make a decision if it makes sense to upgrade the rest of the fleet or if it makes sense to, you know, keep trying it or go back to what we were doing previously.
Funny thing is, we've bought like tens of thousands of dollars in high-end equipment that we just didn't know how to use. And we would return it because we just sucked that much. We were like, oh, we got like this new...
We got scammed.
Yeah, we got like this brand new Sony full frame, like it's going to be great in low light. And then we would take it to do like a twilight shoot, and we would use the wrong codec. The color profile wasn't right, and we would blame the camera. You know, and that's something that like a lot of people preach. It's like learn your equipment rather than just getting stuck behind the hype of it. We're like the biggest example of like getting stuck in the hype of equipment and not knowing how to use it, and then over time getting humbled by it because we see like the results of another creator and we're like, whoa, like that guy's shooting Sony in like pitch black, and like, you know, maybe we weren't using it properly, maybe we were using the wrong color profile, or maybe we weren't taking advantage of the dual native ISO, like getting into more of the technical stuff. And that was where we slowed down on the purchasing and kind of improved our like product, like our actual equipment research. You know, a big problem with videography for real estate is like colors and lighting, because we're working with natural lighting and we have no control over colors, and it takes a very specific workflow to like have control over that in post-production. Because we would just film and we would get like really bad quality stuff, and we would have no way of changing it. We were working like 8-bit color, which is like very difficult to change color temperature or change any sort of lighting. And you know, it's through that process of just kind of being unhappy with our work, and you know, taking one step forward, 2 steps back in some cases, because we thought this color workflow would work well and it didn't, and our editors hated it, and it made our...
That's the problem. You have a team of like, you know, 10 editors, and you bring them all to learn these different LUTs and this Rec 709 to, like, we had all these crazy workflows to try to improve the colors just to work with these new cameras we got, and now you're training a whole team on how to do it, and then it looked better originally. Like, why did we do that? So it's definitely like taking 1 step forward, 2 steps back.
There were years where our color workflow looked better, like
out of camera.
Yeah, out of camera, like originally, and then we would make all these tweaks and watch all these creators, kind of what they did and what they recommend. And then when we would go to actually look back at our footage, it was like, whoa, in 2018 our footage looked better than in 2019 through 2021. Like we have much more grainy footage. And then it was like a very iterative process of like, okay, what did we change and how can we fix it? And
not to say that today it's perfect, you know, like we're still learning, like,
Right,
you know,
okay.
there's still advancements being made. Like, we're obsessed with this stuff. Like, in order to be successful, like, at least the way Ori and I see a business, you have to be obsessed with it, you know?
Yeah.
And we're both very obsessive, and we're the hardest critics on our work because, you know, again, if you're not improving, you're declining. So, like, even today, our colors are, I don't think they're perfect. They look pretty good. Our clients are very happy, you know? We have great feedback from our clients, but there's definitely areas of improvement, you know? And that's where the process of constantly, you know, staying, like, every month there's a new drone that comes out, it feels like. You know, so every month we're on the bandwagon of like, let's go try this new feature,
Right.
you know, and seeing it if it really affects it. So,
yeah.
In terms of some of the mistakes you guys have made over the years, I know you mentioned it earlier that you made a lot of mistakes, and some of them more costly in terms of equipment, maybe some less. What are they, and what lessons did you learn from them?
I mean, there's a few different categories to our mistakes. So like we've made a lot of purchasing mistakes, which I think are a lot more like, you know, everyone gets stuck in some of the hype, you know, the product hype of the equipment coming out. And, you know, it's just something we had to learn the hard way. When our stuff wasn't getting better, even though we were buying significantly better equipment, we realized like we're the reason it's not getting better. So that was kind of an easy fix. It was just reflecting on ourselves, doing a lot.
Failure.
Yeah, admitting that we suck at using this camera, this gimbal, and just kind of getting better at it. But the more expensive ones were like, you know, like the bigger picture stuff. Like, how do we acquire a customer, right? We've tried everything. You know, we've tried, and we still try new stuff. We've done, you know, paid advertisement, manual outreach. You know, we just did an event. We're constantly trying new stuff, and everything has its consequences. Usually it's monetary, so it's, you know, it's not the end of the world. It's just money. You know, as long as you can keep working, usually you can recover from it. But, you know, we spent hundreds of thousands of dollars in advertisement that led to not a ton of business. And really a lot of our failures in that domain was because we thought that there was a quick solution. You know, a lot of the times when we really waste a lot of money is when we're like, oh, we'll just hire this out. Maybe this guy seems legit. Like, we can hire him and he'll help us with all of our problems, because everyone's trying to sell themselves to us, you know. And we noticed that, you know, the more that we're hiring people and just kind of trusting them with a process, it's 90% of the time, those are our biggest regrets.
Diminishing returns. It's like,
yeah,
it doesn't really, it's not always and it's a very, back to what he was saying with hiring things out, it's a very fine line of like, okay, we're only 2 people, we only have enough time in a day, right? We can't learn every single skill and actually do every single skill. Like at some point you have to start, you know, trusting other people to help you out in your business. Right. I think for us, it's always been admitting the failure. It's how we accept it and how we learn from it. Mm-hmm. You know, the second we stopped, because at a certain point we were very cocky, right? We were like, our art looks the best, our videos look the best. Oh, he doesn't like our videos, he must be stupid. Like this is what's in right now. We were so confident with our work to the point where it was like
toxic.
It was toxic because like we didn't admit that we failed. Maybe we were wrong, you know.
Right.
You know, and that led us to a point where we found ourselves like, holy crap, like we have this huge team, not a lot of work, like, you know, we don't really notice it, but month over month the revenues are slowly declining, you know. And you have to have that reality check of like, you know what, dude, maybe we're not the shit. Maybe we're not the best artist here. Clearly, we're not getting hired as much as, you know, as much as we need to be hired, you know. And admitting that failure and being like, you know what, let's take a step back. Let's really think about this from a big, big picture and having those fireside conversations. You know, that's something it's really easy to get sucked into, like the whole day-to-day operation, especially when you're running an operation.
You have your guard up all the time.
Exactly.
You know,
it's like really hard for me, you know, to have like, and I'll tell him like, you know, sometimes, you know, I'll be super congested in my day-to-day, like, you know, answering this person, getting it back to this person, delivering this project, and Ori will come to me with some meta idea, right? Dude, I just found the next breakthrough. I'm like, all right, can we talk about this like this evening when I'm like not in the middle of the chaos because I can't focus on it. I'm not thinking clearly, you know, and I think that's how a lot of the times we've been able to overcome challenges and, you know, failures is to really time manage how we're going about our day and how we're taking care of this company. Because part of it is like meta, like, you know, what are we doing big picture wise, but how are we also satisfying our clients today? You know, like, even if the clients today are not the clients we want tomorrow, they're still our clients today. Like, they're paying for a service, and like, you know, we have very similar values to where like if someone's paying for something, even if you're charging $1 for it and you promise you're giving them something that's worth $100 million, you sign the contract, you promise them this. You have to deliver on that today. What's tomorrow we can worry about later, but like I think that is like, you know, at the core what's important is like understanding what you're getting yourself into, delivering on it, and then also finding the time to refine it down the line.
Yeah, refinement is really important. Like you were talking about, you know, what do we regret the most? And it's like every time that we've had a big regret in the business is because we didn't take the time to actually learn something and like refine a process and really get good at it before just spending money on it and moving forward. That's like usually where we get caught up, and we still make that mistake like today because the grass is always greener on the other side. You talk to some guy and he's like, yeah, you know, I close leads all the time, or you know, you talk to a camera manufacturer and you know they have all this hype behind their equipment, and it's usually like, you know, there's always a catch. And
yeah, you know, at the beginning when you start these businesses, everything's lean, you're limited on the amount of money you have, you're trying to make things happen through actually being productive and new ideas. And as you start growing, you make money, and you think the solution is to throw money at things, and you think money is going to solve everything. And I think very quickly you realize there are solutions where money is the key to it. But then there's other things where, like you said, advertising. It doesn't necessarily mean by you throwing so much money in a particular place, it's going to bring you back the return. Sometimes the best returns are the cheapest things, like social media. And on that note, how has social media been for you guys? How's the growth of it been? How has it changed over the last 5 or 10 years? The different platforms, the different platforms. And have you, how good has it been in terms of bringing work for you guys?
We really struggled. We still struggle with social media. I mean, like we're a video production company, right? So at the end of the day, we have a video that we can just deliver the client and post on social media. And I think what we learned after a couple years of doing that is like you can't just regurgitate media and post it on any platform. We realized that a lot of our work had to be optimized for each platform, right? And it's something we probably are only getting better at in the last like 6 to 8 months. Right. You know, it's not something we've known for a long time. What we would do is we would finish a video, posted on every platform in the exact same edit.
16:9 ratio. And
Yeah, it was just the exact same thing. Like for Instagram, we would just cut our videos at a minute, like hard cut, you know. And we didn't realize because Roy and I use Instagram and we use social media, but we're not influencers. You know, we've never on either one of our personal accounts, we've never had 100,000 followers or really grown an account further than like our family and friend circle. You know, so we, especially with the explosion of Reels, we at some point, even with our original stuff before Reels, we were doing pretty well. Like we had a few videos that were getting a couple 100,000 views, which for feed post was a pretty big deal. But even then, we were working with like content partners. We would have a lot of networks reposting our stuff, and we weren't so sure about like the merit of how they were getting their own followers. And I feel like it kind of spread into our account, in terms of like, I'm sure that some of them had some fake followers, fake likes and all that. Mm-hmm. And I don't think it was really healthy for our account. But when Reels started blowing up big time, we slowly kind of refined our like optimization process for how we take like media that's already existing and deliver to a client, and how we package it into something that can do well on Instagram.
Right.
And we were having a conversation at Tanager, right, where we were talking a lot about like what makes a viral post, right, and how do you guys package it up, and it's very random. There's a few best practices that we can take. It comes down, I think, to like, the house itself. I think how viral is the house itself or the property? How well are you packaging the edit with the song that you're playing? Right. How viral is the song? But even then, you could have a perfect house, perfect song, perfect visuals, right, and it flops. And I think it's just about doing over and over again, staying consistent with it.
I think general rule of thumb with anything, you could relate this to like working out or like whatever it is, eating clean. Consistency, and that was like the biggest thing for us is like we would be consistent on Instagram, but the second things would flop 1 time, 2 times, 3 times, we'd be like, all right, screw this, let's focus on YouTube,
Right.
And we would stop the consistency. Right. So maybe the algorithm would eventually on that 5th post pop off, but we just gave up because we were like, this is a waste of our time. Right.
So social media is a really difficult one. We got involved in it about 18 months ago. And my thing was I would see a lot of videos on Instagram. That's the one we started off on. And it was mainly shot by realtors. It wasn't guys like yourself as much. I mean, out of 100, maybe one's shot professionally, the rest aren't. And I looked at them and I thought the quality of them was terrible. The way they were filmed, they were choppy. They weren't really showing the space. It was just someone would stand in one spot and just go like this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it's like, you need to move. You need to like show the different spaces, or they would show the entire property, every single bedroom, and no one wants to see the boring bedroom in a basement. So for me, it was more the key features. And we just started posting, and for the longest time, for almost, I think it was 8 or 9 months before the first video went viral, or almost, it was maybe almost a year. And I literally had under 1,000 followers. And then we had one video that went viral, and then we had another one, and like 3 went viral within a space of, I would say 6 weeks to 2 months. And that literally took us from under 100,000, under 100 to, I think it was like 60 or 70,000 within a space of 6 weeks. Wow. And then, it plateaued a little bit, and then another one semi-viral, and it kind of went all the way up, and we're sitting on 110 at the moment. But since then, it's completely plateaued. It's not growing anymore. And people ask me, what did you do? How did you do it? And honestly, there isn't, like, I couldn't give someone the secret formula to it, because I think what you pointed out, consistency, definitely, I think that helped. I think at the time we were posting, Reels was getting pushed massively by Instagram, and that one video of ours got 4 million hits, and I think over 4 million and 180,000 likes, our main one. And that was the reel that blew us up. But it was just catching that real push by Instagram at the time. The quality, was it the best video we've ever put on there? I don't think so. Was it good? Yes, it was. Have we put better ones on there that have done far, far less? And now, nothing seems to be going viral. Everyone is complaining about putting stuff on there, and it's just not happening.
Well, so they're like constantly changing their approach. But what I really quickly, before we move on, I just want to say that with Instagram, what was really screwed up for us was we thought the more polished and well edited a video is on Instagram, the better it's going to do. And that was like the biggest mistake, because we would spend hours polishing each post and making sure it looked good. and getting a lot less content out there, and it would do terrible, like
Right.
over and over and over again.
Right.
And it was like a year or two of just posting consistently. Roy was handling a lot of our Instagram
Right.
posts, and he was like wasting, like 30, 40 minutes in my day where I could be doing client outreach or customer service. And
Right. And it's disheartening as well
Yeah.
because especially with you guys, the amount of time and effort you're putting into it. For us, it was more, we would go to these open house that we have for brokers and we would just walk around and shoot. It was a natural process anyway. I was in those open houses because I wanted to see the latest homes and the latest developers and the latest architects or the best that are designing, and I just wanted to know the space because I'm in a real estate development space. And it was a very natural process. So if I was to put something on and it didn't go crazy, it was disappointing, of course, but it wasn't something that was my livelihood.
yeah.
So I could imagine for people that they're putting all their life and energy, and that's their main their main place where they're trying to get business from, and things are not going viral and they're not happening. It's really tough. It's tough.
What I would say is like, don't let it consume you. Like that's like, I'm guilty of it, always guilty of it. I'm sure you are too. It starts to consume you, especially once you have a video that goes viral.
Right.
Start. It's like a high, and
You're
you're
always
like
chasing
chasing
the
that
next
high.
one. Yeah, totally.
And to just put it bluntly, I don't know how much money Instagram's made us. Right? We've proved to ourselves that Instagram is not bringing the clients. It's not bringing very high-paying work. What it is bringing is like brand awareness and credibility and hype.
Right.
It's hype, right? The fact that we've gotten to where we've gotten is because since day one the brand has always been the focus, right? It's always been pushing the logo.
Right.
I remember we had a time where we'd put our watermark on every single video. Client branded deliverables, right? Some of them would be upset, be like, take your logo off. No worries, we'll take it off, fine. But a lot of them wouldn't care. They didn't care to post it.
Right.
And it was always like people kept seeing the OneShot logo over and over again.
Right.
And same thing with Instagram, we post consistently, so people are seeing the OneShot logo and the OneShot brand all the time, over and over and over again.
I think it's also important to we realize this, early on with Instagram, but you have to pick a niche, right? Like that's something that's big for Instagram. We're both in the luxury houses space, which is a big niche where people are vision stretching and they just want to see nice houses and kind of enjoy their coffee or whatever in the morning. But what we also realized is that some of the biggest companies that do production, maybe not specifically in real estate, but in all other spaces, that they're not, social media isn't the only way to pick up clients. It's a big part of it and we invest in it. We spend time every day building our accounts, but there's companies that are a lot bigger than us that have 2,000, 3,000 followers that are, those 2,000, 3,000 followers might only be their employees,
Right.
So
and the illusion of the more followers you have, the more successful you are, it's completely wrong.
Oh, yeah.
And I've noticed that over the years. It doesn't mean, it means something, but it doesn't mean as much as people think it does.
Even I have heard that so many times, and I constantly have to remind myself of that, just because I've seen success with not a lot of followers on Instagram.
Right.
But it's very easy for us to say that to the person that has not seen that success.
Right.
Well, you're just saying it to say it, genuinely.
Right.
You work with these big brands and these big corporations. We've done work for Fortune 500 companies before. Big companies. Go look at the stock market. A lot of those companies on the stock market, the S&P 500, their Instagram presence is zero.
Right.
They just don't have anything on there. It's not, social media is not important for them.
Right.
It
Depends also which industry you're in as well. In terms of the reward you get from it. And same with TikTok's the same as well. TikTok, which you pointed earlier, and it's very, very true. The same videos don't work on both platforms. They almost have to be edited or done completely different. I think TikTok's a lot more people talking, and it's a lot more raw. Instagram is a bit more professional, and it's almost like I would say it's a portfolio.
Yeah.
And it's a proof of what you can do for people. It's just that online portfolio that they can go and see who you are and what you're about. So, you touched on branding earlier on. What does that word mean to you? Because we hear this constantly about branding, personal branding. What does that mean to you, and what have you guys done?
Yeah, I think it's more of a representation of your values and what you like as a creator and what you push, right? You look at our logo, it's very clean, modern, simple. You have black, white, gray. that's the, what we like. That's our videos are also very clean, simple, modern. At least that's what we strive for. I mean, maybe sometimes we miss the mark, but that's what we're always going for. And it also, and everything kind of has to tie into that. Like, I'm not an influencer, right? And I also believe in like the long term of our company, which is to one day, have hundreds and thousands of employees, right? If I called it Roy Gelbart Productions, it wouldn't work, right? Because like, what if Roy, retires and he's not there anymore, So you have this name and this logo and this brand, and this is the brand that gets pushed. This is the thing that everyone sees. They see OneShot. They don't see Roy. They don't see my personal Instagram. They don't see my logo. They see this logo and this brand, and this is art we produce. Some videos Ori will shoot and edit. He'll still put the OneShot logo on it. He's not going to go put, even if we were our own freelancers, which we're not, but let's say we were, because we're in this business together, it's like it's a OneShot piece, and vice versa, And I think
it's like its own entity, kind of like it has its own personality, even aside from Roy and I, because it's just collective personality. It's me, Roy, our employees, our clients' feedback. That's what builds, the image of the brand and kind of the product that we create.
Do you think that the whole narrative of pushing a personal brand is
I think
overhyped?
No, I don't think so. It's very important to put like a face to the name sometimes, especially not as much as in residential, but like especially, I don't know if a lot of people know this, but we do a lot of different industries. We probably make even more money in other industries that are not residential in terms of actual dollars. Like we do a lot of industrial work and like commercial work, multifamily, hospitality, hotels, cars, yachts, whatever it is. And in those spaces, right, those people aren't on Instagram, right? Those people are on LinkedIn, so like I make sure, on my LinkedIn to always be active in messaging people and outreaching, and people start to connect with me as an extension of OneShot, like I'm like their contact, and I have to make sure my personal brand is reflecting what I am and what I believe in, If you go to my LinkedIn, the first thing you'll see is how I'm a huge Laker fan, because that's who I am, that's what I like,
Right.
And people really tend to, that's how you build a connection with someone. If I go to meet like a client at a bar, right, I'm not just going to be talking about my work for 3 hours, right? We're going to find something to connect on and eventually become like kind of friendly with each other and friends. And then now we have this relationship where he trusts me and we have the same values and we like the same things. Maybe he'll throw me a bone in the next, industrial warehouse he'll hire me to shoot it.
I have a different take than Roy on this. Like Roy's big into personal branding, like he's been on camera many more times than me. I also feel like I think a personal brand, it's pretty rarely can hurt you, but I think that sometimes it could kind of skew the perspective of whoever's looking at you. So I think there's a lot of really, really big businessmen and professionals that maybe don't have a strong personal brand, which creates, I think, a layer of like mystery and kind of leaves an open book. And I think that that's something that you can leverage. I don't think it has to be one or the other, but I think that that it's a mixed bag. You see guys that are doing millions in transactions and acquisitions in the commercial space that are very outspoken and have their face at every conference or at all these events. And then you have a ton of guys that are just, working in their office, don't go on Instagram, aren't really active on LinkedIn, but they produce billions of dollars in transactions. Right. So I think that it has to align with who you are. I don't think you have to force it though. Like, I don't force it. I don't try to have a strong personal brand. Roy really enjoys that. Like, he likes that aspect and it helps him. I think it has to align with your personality, and I think that the most important thing is to, like, be authentic to yourself. Right. Like, if I'm personally not the best on camera, so I don't go and do...
You're doing quite well.
Yeah, but I don't go and sit in front of the camera at OneShot and just try to, do these educational videos or explain our business, Having a conversation is really easy for me, but to do like promotional content of myself is more difficult. Whereas Roy can, do a more polished, presentation for himself.
Right. I love the answer here, and the reason I love it is because it's two different perspectives on the same question, and I agree with both of you. What I hate is when you get these social media influencers or whoever they are, and they come up with these directional answers of it's only this, you have to have a personal brand, or you have to,
like, one size fits all,
right? And it's not that Kevin and I always have this discussion. I say, like, they give you certain advice in absolutes, and there's so many variables to, there's no way you can just say yes, only have a personal brand. you know, if you don't look great on camera, like you said, or you don't have the personality, well, then you don't want that. Then you want to use that layer of, what did you say,
Mystery.
mysticism? Yeah,
Yeah.
which is, I love that. I love that.
I mean, that's worked for us for years when we were like a lot, like, you know, right in the beginning, you know, a year or 2 years into the fact that we were so mysterious, right? We were like these new kids on the block that are just making these super polished, clean edits. You know, there was no behind the scenes footage of how we shoot or what we used to edit or me in the Starbucks editing, right? People were able to use their imagination and think of like, oh wow, this team probably has like 50 employees and they're probably working at this huge creative space. When in reality, just me like hunched over, like eating a croissant, gaining all this weight, like really putting my blood, sweat, and tears and even my health into making this business and making something that, you know, it is what it is today. And that mystery layer of it probably helped with that, helped us with it, probably our sales and acquiring clients. Because if they really saw what was behind the scenes, maybe it would have skewed the perspective on what our company really was. But ultimately, the art is like, you know, what we tend to fall back on. Like, we make really good content. We are proud of the work we make. And that's ultimately all that matters. If you make good work, right, and you post that work, you have a portfolio where it's live for the world to see. Personal brand or not, people are hiring you. If you have good work, you're probably going to get hired.
The result speaks for itself.
Yeah, the actions are louder than words.
And that's like the
time.
best sales pitch, you know, like you know, I don't consider myself someone that's good at sales, right? But I'm the person answering the phone at OneShot, and I'm usually the person, you know, talking to these clients on a, you know, one-on-one level. And I don't ever push any sort of sales. It's like, if you like the work on our portfolio, this is what it costs. And usually people like the work on the portfolio, and you know, the work is only worth what you're willing to price it at. So it's been working for us, just really putting all of our eggs into making the quality of the product really, really good, making the brand fun to work with, being ourselves, like young, hungry people. You know, there's been so many times in the beginning where I'm just now reflecting. It's like we'd go to these shoots, especially like the first few years, and we meet these photographers that are so, you could tell they're miserable. You know, they're not nice. They're very upset. They're annoyed. They're there for hours. You know, they have like 3
Underpaid
assistants.
and overworked.
And that was never what we wanted to do. We didn't want to have these big setups because we saw these photographers with these lights and rigs and this and that and employees miserable. We're like, no, we don't want to have all that. We want to be lean and be in and out of these properties, make the best work. And ultimately, that's what the brands become. But, you know, it's like a one-stop shop. We're clean, we're efficient, we're modern, we're minimal, we're simple, but yet we're, you know, very high quality. So that's just to kind of tie in the brand into personal brand and everything. That's kind of what
Yeah, I also think to go off of that, you know, there's certain like constraints in industry, right? You get to a certain point where you charge tip-top dollar for what you do. You charge more than that, it's more than likely that, like in our case, a lot of residential real estate agents won't be able to afford a certain price. You know, so I think it's a big difference, you know, growing a company like $1 million into growing a company at $10 million. Right. It requires you to rethink, you know, what industry you're hitting, what services you're offering, and kind of your approach. You know, probably one man with a gimbal is going to be paid $250,000 for a job.
Right.
So it's kind of like constantly iterating and reflecting, like having that self-awareness to be like, okay, like we're doing a lot of volume here. We're probably charging the most we could possibly charge in this industry. If we want to make more money, we have to figure out a different approach and kind of leverage the knowledge we have to do a little bit of a different different service.
Is this the reason why you guys decided to go into commercial hospitality?
Yeah, I mean, aside from the monetary aspect of it, commercial and hospitality is just we've been at like 90% of the houses in LA that are over $100 million.
Right.
You know, not all of them, but we've been to a lot of them, and I think that from a passion standpoint, it gets kind of boring. You know, no matter if we went tomorrow to a $250, $300 million house, it'd be like, wow, this is amazing. But after an hour of being there, it's like, oh, okay, we've been here before. It's like we're kind of. I don't want to say we get bored of it, but there's less passion and drive there. But now when we're going to, you know, we did the Ritz-Carlton and Turks and Caicos last month, and that's like, you go there, not only do you get to shoot, but they spoil you while you're at the property. You know, the pay is good, and there's like it's like a whole different world. You know, we're traveling to a new area. It's not just LA or Florida. It's like a whole different world. And I think that's what commercial, the like allure of commercial has been lately for us, aside from just monetary, is like the experience is much more broad and usually on a larger scale. And a lot of the times when we're working with commercial agents and commercial just groups like real estate holdings companies and stuff like that, they're a lot more flexible with scheduling, a lot easier to communicate with. Usually they have a full team that's dealing with us, so there's like all the resources you need right away. And I think that's just overall like a more streamlined and professional like experience.
It's like funny. I always say like the more, like the bigger the company gets and the higher the budgets are, usually the more easygoing they are. You know, like they're not as like just annoying. Like, you know, some of these residential, it's like, I'm sure you deal with it. It's like you're dealing with, it's like a certain personality that you're dealing with, right? And there's very, it's a lot of,
it's like the Groupon effect.
exactly. It's like they're playing director on you, you know, and like I feel like I'm constantly being like watched and like I'm in and out of these properties. Oh, you have to leave. There's an open house. Or like, oh, we can't do a sunrise shoot here because the owner is sleeping and like they don't want to wake up. And it limits like the art. Whereas when you have these companies, they're like, deliver it whenever you need it. We just want the best product. Let us know when to be there to open up. We'll make sure team members open for you. Oh, you need a hotel room? Your staff needs to stay there? Here you go. How many nights do you need? And it's a lot more like, there's a lot more space for us to do our work and to do a good job. Like the opportunities feel a lot more fulfilling because we're able to put a lot more resources into the craft, you know. When we were over there at the Ritz, you know, they didn't have we're like, when do you need the video by? They're like, honestly, however long you need to make a really, really cool product, we'll do it. You know, they asked us, do you guys need anything else other than the resort? We're like, well, you guys have this really cool sailboat. Can we take it to sea and get some cool footage? They're like, yeah, sure, why not? You know, and if you go ask like, you know, a realtor, hey, can we like throw a party at this party house? They might be super chill and like actually do it, but most of the time they're gonna be like, no, we can't do that. Like we can't trash this house just for the video. You know what I mean? So it's like using the property and like what we're shooting and really telling that lifestyle of what it offers.
Yeah.
It really comes down to like budgeting, honestly. Like we enjoy the work more. It's because we enjoy the work more in that space because they have larger budgets that usually they have to spend in a quarter. You know, it's not even like Roy and I are trying to sell them on, you know, doing a bigger production. It's like, we have this budget, we have to spend it on this project. What can we get within that budget? And that's where Roy and I get to get a lot more creative versus just, you know, a residential project, no matter what scale, you know?
Yeah, I think on the residential side of things, everyone's under pressure from the developer, who's usually late because everyone's delayed him from the city all the way down to the architect. Financially, he's got a lot of constraints. Then now you have the agent involved who's under a massive amount of pressure to sell the property. And then all of these pressures then suddenly come on you and you want to shoot and suddenly they don't have time and they're frustrated and people are upset. So I think and then what the point you were making earlier about a lot of the problems come in business and partnerships is when there isn't enough cash flow and money. But with commercial, they have so much money coming in, they have departments, and it's just a lot more of a smooth process, I would imagine.
Yeah, and we also found, you know, we identified big opportunities in commercial because, you know, in residential real estate, when you build a strong relationship with a client, they'll throw all their work your way, right? But sometimes they don't have work to throw your way. Right. They're limited by their network's bandwidth, right? Whereas with commercial, you work with a group that owns, you know, 10, 20, 30 billion dollars in properties. There's always work to come your way. And the more relationship you build with their teams, the more they're going to include you in these projects, right? And that's where we found like a lot of opportunity to capitalize on these relationships in a little bit of a deeper level. And we provide more value because we have, within our company, we have great bandwidth. We could do several projects a day, you know, whereas in residential, we're waiting for the market to send work our way, you know?
On the residential side of things, where do you guys see the market going? It's kind of a turbulent time at the moment with the interest rates being really high. Has that affected you guys, your work, and you guys on the ground? How do you see things happening?
So for us, it's like it came at a really weird time. Like the way the market is right now, we're obviously in a decline of the market. I think everyone's on the same page regarding that. There's just less inventory and just no one's selling. It seems like not a lot of people are buying, it seems like. But for us, it kind of, just where we were in our company, we kind of forecasted a little bit. We we noticed it a little bit early just because we had our own challenges within the company, and we kind of had this hunch. It was like really weird, like stars aligning moment, to where we like, we realized, okay, one, our margins just weren't there with our huge team and, where we were at. So we naturally started, not even scaling down the team and like scaling down our expenses because of this market, more just because the current state of things back then was not where it needed to be. And then with that, the market started changing, and we started like seeing less and less work come our way from the residential sector. And right now, where we're at is like, we are naturally doing less work than what we probably did a year ago in terms of properties and residential. But like we were talking about earlier, is like each project is able to get a lot more nurture, a lot more TLC, and making sure that like every project we're able to like go 110% on and put a lot more resources toward. And also understanding that, not every client that reaches out is going to be our client. Our work our pricing has fluctuated, pricing has changed because we're putting in a lot more effort and a lot more care into each and every production. So what I see, I'll let Ori answer on his take on it, but what I see in the future is like, I think eventually there's going to be a crash, and with every crash there's opportunity, and whoever's going to be there for that opportunity, whether it's investing in real estate, they're going to have that cash flow. Like I tell all my friends, all my family, as much money as you have right now, try to save up as much as you can, because cash is going to be king. When the prices start to come down and interest rates are going to have no choice but to come down just to bring the market back up to speed again, that's when, you can start buying and flipping and doing all this really cool stuff with the real estate. And for us, we're right now getting in a place and positioning ourselves, especially with this opening of this new office, to be around for when the market starts to boom again. We're right now, like, if we can manage to stay busy with our other industries, whether it's industrial or hospitality. Like, hospitality has not slowed down. Right? People are still traveling. Flights are still overbooked. It's like, hotels still need content. Like, the Marriott's not going anywhere. Four Seasons are not going anywhere. They're going to be there, and they still need marketing every quarter, So just kind of being able to stay for the long course of things, I think it'll all work itself out.
Yeah. The current state of the market gave us a lot of perspective on like having our eggs all in one basket. We're a very residential centric company. Like a lot of, I would say like up until now, like 50 to 70% of our work is in the residential space. And I think that with the decline of the market a little bit, it's been like opening our eyes. Like, wait, this market might be here today and might be not here tomorrow. Like it could kind of go away. Not completely. People are always going to be buying homes, but in terms of our business, $10+ million houses aren't going to be always selling at volume, right? Especially with like EULA and stuff, it really kind of neutered the business a little bit. But because the market kind of declined, it accelerated our transition to going into hospitality, going into retail, industrial. Those are like big markets for us, and in that space, even though it's slowed down as well, it's still the volume there just by nature is.
It's survival of the fittest, man. Like, and that's what we were saying earlier. It's like we're always adapting and changing, and like, what we do today might not be what we do tomorrow or in a month or in a year. Like Ori and I are constantly having these conversations on like, what's the next step, right? What are we doing tomorrow, and what are our five next steps after that? Right. And that could change on like, a day-to-day, month-to-month basis. But as long as us as partners were aligned on the goal and where we're heading, then we can put all of our eggs into doing that, doing that one thing, right? If it's getting into new industry, all right, what do we need to do to get into shooting more yachts, right? Yeah. And then we build that action plan, and we go through all the micro steps, and we celebrate all those micro wins to eventually have a whole portfolio and a whole clientele of just yacht brokers and yachts on our,
Is that what you're planning to do?
I mean, it's
one of the fun projects,
Yeah.
I was just in the Fort Lauderdale yacht show, just meeting people, and I mean, it's cool. Like, I like boats personally, so we try to do stuff that we enjoy.
That'd be amazing, yeah. And private jets?
Maybe private jets.
Yeah.
I just threw that example. Like, we definitely right now, our focus is like a lot of industrial, hospitality, multifamily, residential, like always. But, yachts is something that we've kind of like, we're both very into them. Like, like.
We also, like lately, we've been kind of talking a lot about this, like, okay, right now we're in a down market. Like, everyone's feeling it, right? Maybe some people there's still opportunity right now, but we're like thinking, okay, we're diversifying ourselves, we're surviving in a down market, and we're actually thriving in a down market. Like imagine the momentum we'll have once the market starts to recover, you know. And I think that same thing goes for developers or anybody in services that surround real estate. You know, it's like if you could survive in a down market, the momentum you'll have once the volume starts shooting back up is like infinite, you know.
Do you think, and you guys have shot a lot of super high-end luxury mega mansions, do you think developers got greedy in terms of their price points? And what's the most expensive home you guys have shot, and also your favorite homes?
Maybe I can talk about the developer question. You can answer the most expensive house. So I think that developers, they do what they have to do in that market. It's a market that has, I mean, there has to be some sort of cushion, right? Because they're spending, you know, 5 to 7 years of their life on a large project, and I think that a lot of that margin that they're charging above the cost of the project, it's like, what do you value those years of your life as? And these guys like invest everything into it. It's like they love it, especially the beautiful homes. They don't just pop up out of nowhere. It's not just a general contractor that, you know, runs the project himself. It's usually like a visionary that like is willing to put together hundreds of millions of dollars to build this like amazing one of a kind property. So I think that they have to, just for their time and for the amount of life that they've put towards it, I think that they have to charge a little bit for that. And I mean, if I was in their position, I would probably come to market super high. You can always lower the price. It's very hard to raise the price later. And I think that, you know, there's some developers in between some of like the more visionary guys that kind of try to ride the bandwagon, and maybe like they did get a little bit greedy because they didn't have the same level of attention to detail and, you know, the same like final product as some of the super like iconic developers in LA. But I think that overall, like these developers are, you know, it's a mixed bag. Like Roy and I go to every project is like, oh, these finishes look really rough, and oh my god, like this other project, like the finishes were just perfect down to the centimeter.
We
know?
notice like the small stuff, like the things that like, you know, like the corners of like the drywall, how it meets up. Like we're like really like nitpicking, right? Because like when you take a step back, and even when you look at our video, a property that you could tell like was rushed looks beautiful, and a property that you could tell was like very nurtured, and the developer was super into like all the finest intricacies of the details. On camera, they both look the same. They both look beautiful, right? But when we're there in person, we get really into the details. And I think someone that has that sort of money to buy like that ultra luxury real estate, that's what they're paying for. I think, you know, I'm not in that position, so I don't know yet. But like one day, you know, if I ever get there and if I ever want to buy one of these houses, that's what I would value my dollars in, like the craftsmanship, right? If the bottom of the wood like is like chipping, like even a little bit, why am I paying $5, $10, $15 million for this house?
Some of these houses are built like sets. And, you know, like a set looks great on camera. Maybe for a walkthrough it'll look really cool. But the second that you open a fridge or you start to use some sort of fixtures or cabinetry in the house, it's like a lot of the houses are built like that. I think that's where they get greedy, when they try to import really, really cheap materials and they're not integrated properly. And that's like, you know, I think it's kind of screwed up, you know, at that level of real estate to be doing that. But you don't see that a lot in, you know, some of the high-end commercial stuff. Usually they're so reliant on the operational income of the property that they can't have constant expenses rebuilding finishes. And so you see a lot higher level of craftsmanship in like some of these commercial and hospitality projects.
Totally. I mean, some hotel lobbies that you go into are so well designed, so well thought out, that you think, why don't they bring some of these designers and do some of these super high-end luxury? But on the luxury side of things, I do agree with you in terms of timeline. I think 1200 Bel Air, which you guys shot, I think that took them 10 years. Yeah. If I'm not mistaken.
They custom made furniture, flying back and forth from Italy.
Right.
That was like a passion, project born from love. Like big time.
I spoke to one of the guys, one of the investors in it, partners in it, and he was saying, thinking, if I'm not mistaken, he said 10 or 11 years, and he was like, I can't believe I've literally spent a decade of my life building one house.
How do you price that?
How do you price that right? And then also, when you think about these developments, sometimes you look at the numbers and you think to yourself, this guy's going to walk away with, I don't know, 20 million. But if you actually annualize that, it's 2 million a year. And then once you add up paying tax on it, you're not actually left with that the kind of, I mean, don't get me wrong, it's good money, but it's nowhere near the kind of margins that people think you're left with.
Oh, yeah.
And the amount of pressure and time and the risk.
You have to have the
risk.
passion in it,
right?
right?
Right.
We got to meet the developer at 1200 Bel Air, and you could tell that man is passionate about it, and he loves the process.
40,000 square foot house. He knows every inch of it.
Right.
Every
I haven't
inch of
seen
it.
that myself. I saw the one on Flickr that they done.
Yeah,
Flickr's
we
also
did.
Right, that's
beautiful.
where I met one of the
Yeah.
guys
Yeah.
there, and he was, I think that took 7 years, right? 6 or 7 years.
Yeah, and they're a small team. You know, it's like a few guys that are just really, really into it. You
Right.
know, that there's no stone unturned on this
Right.
project. And that's like a rare type of project, because even at those price ranges, you have guys that are so under pressure to turn around the project and
Right.
sell it quickly that they just don't care. They don't have that level of detail. These guys know like every inch of the place.
Right. And I think there's developers and there's developers. There's developers that do it purely for the money, and they're trying to save at every juncture they can, and I think that's a massive mistake in property development. And then there's developers that do it really out of love, and they find the best interior designers, and they realize, look, what's the difference between getting an amazing quality product and something that's not so great? It might be an extra 5% in the budget,
Yeah.
or 10% in the budget, but in the bigger scheme of things, they're experienced enough and they have enough passion to do it. But I think at the moment, Los Angeles has got a lot of developers that are doing it purely for the money, and it shows in the final product where you walk in. Kevin and I have seen, I don't know, like 300-400 homes now over the last couple of years, above 10 million. And there's I would say 1 out of 10 has been done really, really well.
Yeah.
And all the
It's
details
very rare.
right.
Yeah.
It's more surprising. You're like, oh wow, like they did this
Right,
cool.
right,
You know,
right.
it's like it's more surprising to walk into a house that's built really well than it is to walk into one that you're like, yeah, it looks better on camera.
Totally. And I'm like you. I walk into a house and I start, because I'm in the business, I start seeing all the details. Just like,
Hyperanalyzing, yeah.
just like you would watch footage and you'd be able to see every flaw and everything that's good about it. And I see the good and the bad, but there's a lot of small mistakes that are made. And the biggest problem with the high end is most of them don't have quality finishes. That finish, the lines, the transition between spaces and materiality, that's where things kind of start falling apart, and that's when you can tell the really, really good developers and the ones that are, you know, they're trying, but maybe they don't have the experience. It's not an easy business, especially at the high end. There's so many.
I mean, think about it. When you're building like $150 million house, that's like making a movie. It's
Right,
like you're recruiting. You're in the position of recruiting talent,
Right.
and then positioning the talent, and then quality checking at every step. It's like these budgets are for residential. These budgets are crazy. You know, for commercial, they're small budgets
Right.
because they're spending. For a hotel, they have like hundreds of millions of dollar budget, and there is room for failure, and there is room to rebuild the whole lobby if it doesn't
Right.
feel right.
Yeah.
But like these guys, like the guy that built 1200 Bel Air and Flickr, it's like this is like everything. You know, it has to be good.
Well,
you know?
they still haven't sold, right?
I don't think so.
I don't
not
believe
sure.
either of them have sold. Yeah.
Yeah.
And 1200 Bel Air was priced at 139.
Yeah.
Was it 139?
I think that's what they started at. I think they've dropped it a little bit since, but you know, eventually the right person's gonna come around.
Right.
There's not as many. I always say there's not as many buyers in that price range, right? You go to sell something at 1 to 2 million, you have a lot more buyers that can
Right.
afford that.
Right.
You know, you were asking me a little bit ago when we got into this whole topic, like our favorite homes and
right.
the most expensive home we've ever shot. And the most expensive home we've ever shot is like, you know, what the developer priced it at. You know, I personally would, you know, I would think that probably the one is the most expensive house we've shot, right? In terms of residential.
They were looking to sell that originally for 500,000, right?
Yeah,
and
500 million, yeah.
Or 500 million, sorry, 500 million, and I think then they reduced it to 250, and then it ended up
some
not
big
selling.
logistical problems with that project. And
Yeah.
there was a lot of rumors in the industry, like before it became public, and like it all kind of blew up in everyone's face. There was like a lot of rumors that we kept hearing about it, that the project's not finished, and there's all these like you know, structural issues over there. But you know, the Fashion Nova guy, I think bought it at a good deal, like paid 140 million for it.
I thought he got an amazing deal on that house.
Yeah.
I looked into that extensively, Kevin and I did, and it was Nio Miami who developed it, and I think that project ran for over 10 years. I think the issue with that project, because it was a one of a kind, and there were so many learning curves along the way, that it just stretched so long that a lot of the loans started getting called in, and he just went so far into it that it was just an impossible
mean,
scenario to get
that-
started. He lost everything.
That project was probably like $10-20 million away from being like the coolest house
Right,
ever.
right. And
It just didn't get finished.
Right, and you know what I didn't like is that a lot of people were giving the guy shit for like, who would do this and so on. And to your point, if he'd just gone a little bit further, there's such a fine line between success and failure. And he'd sold it for that price, everyone would have been, wow, you're a genius. Look what you achieved. But because it didn't happen, everyone's like, what a stupid idea.
Well,
the home was stunning.
I think when we did another house in Carcassonne that he had developed, and at that point, I think he had like $1 billion in houses on the market actively.
Wow.
So this guy like did a lot of big projects, definitely like a beast in the space. But all it takes when you're doing, it's such a high risk environment, all it takes is one bad project and it takes you out of the business, and all your investors too,
Yeah, I mean, so to answer your question, that's not my favorite house I've ever shot. I don't really know which house is my favorite. All I can tell you is I'm probably not going to ever live in a house that's bigger than 4,000 square feet.
Right.
That's why I know it for sure. I've been in too many houses that are too big that I just can't see myself in. But Ori and I are big time into the details, right? Like when we were at Carcassonne, which is another project of Niles, the details there were very nice. Or even like 1200 Bel Air and Flickr.
Right.
Very, very nice houses. Very clean, elegant. Like it felt like you were in.
And they were finished.
And they were finished.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
We shot the one, and it. Someone that was there on camera, it looked great, But being there in person, you could tell that there was some serious issues, And ultimately, that's probably why it all the guy ran out of money, and things fell apart. But props to him for having that like vision and running with it, and
I agree.
he literally did not give up. Like he had no even when it did go into auction, he didn't. I don't know if you remember the drama. He did not want it to go into auction.
Right.
There was all this drama that he was like, "No, you guys are not taking my house." But ultimately,
because I think it pretty much put everything that he had into that house. He put so much investment into it that he was going to lose everything. And like you said, the person who bought it, the guy from Fashion Nova, right? I think he got how much did he?
140 million. I think he won an auction.
I think he got an amazing deal for that house.
Yeah.
It's a one of a kind. I think it was 105,000 square feet, if I'm not mistaken. So
yeah.
And 6 pools, 7 pools. It was insane.
Couldn't even count it.
Yeah, it was
if
crazy.
you asked me to. But the most expensive property we've ever done actually is Metropolis in downtown LA. It's a $2 billion development by a Chinese group, and it was like that was crazy.
Commercial?
Multifamily.
Yeah, multifamily with apartments.
Right,
and it was 3 towers. I think they had like 3,000 or 4,000 units in those towers, and that was a cool project to see. That was the largest scale project we've ever seen like come to market, come online.
Was that recent?
It was like 2 years ago.
No, it was like 2018, 2019, something like that. I don't know.
It was that long ago? Wow.
Maybe it was it during COVID? I don't know, but that was multifamily and industrial, like a lot bigger. We've shot warehouses that are like over a few million square feet, like just never ending. Like we like have our little segues that we ride through in the warehouse just because to get from one corner to the next takes a while. But
it's just funny how it takes for the one it was like a 10-year process, and then you see like a building that's 14 million square feet go up in 12 to 18 months, and it's like
I always think that as well. I think to myself, some of these developers take 4 or 5 years to do a hillside home, and you can literally build a couple of towers in 2 years. So,
but they bring in the guys that are building the towers are bringing in like world famous like GCs and like literally the best of the best. It's like the Beatles of building.
And towers. One thing I will tell you about them, as complex as they are to build, they're pretty much copy and paste. It's one level, and then it's more or less the same thing. The
layouts, a steel structure going up.
The layouts are pretty much the same. You have an elevator shaft that goes up and down. So it's just about speed. They know what they're doing. The process is relatively streamlined, and they just get on with it. That's why they're able to do what they do so quickly. But I've got to take you guys back to your favorite properties. I know you said you don't. Do you have one or two that you could say some of your favorites rather than just pointing out one?
Oh man, residential.
Right, residential.
I'll let Ori go first. I didn't think about it.
This might take a second. I don't know.
I know you guys really did like 1200 Bel Air
1200 Bel Air was amazing.
when
I
we
mean,
spoke last
I know
time.
my
You mentioned it,
favorite
yeah.
Yeah, Flickr was my favorite, and I'm not sure if I'm supposed to say this publicly. It's because it had a gun range in it.
I know.
And that was like the coolest.
He told me,
That was the
yeah.
coolest feature in any
Right,
house in
right.
LA, and it was also a really nice house with a great location.
Yeah.
But
Flickr was on the market for 78, I believe.
Yeah.
And I don't
Think
think that's
so?
sold. I don't think so. We need to look into it. But yeah, I really like Flickr as well. That was a nice
one of my favorite properties was one that I saw in Entourage that we ended up filming back in the day. It's One Electra in Mount Olympus.
Okay.
And it was actually pretty distressed. It was owned by the daughter of Larry Ellison, and it ended up being like abandoned for a few years and like sitting on the market. And that was like a really, really cool property. It reminded me of the Iron Man house, you know, from the movie. And that's like a trophy property. I mean, that's one of the coolest properties. It ended up only selling for like 28 million, but like that's one that I would renovate and live in big time.
For me, I would say probably like the Invisible House in Joshua Tree, just because it's like,
Oh, I've seen that.
it's like that glass structure,
Right.
and it's. I don't even know if I could consider it a house. It doesn't really feel like a house, and it just the way it like blends into the environment.
It looks like
and,
a crashed spaceship.
Yeah, it's just a really, really cool property, and
Yeah.
like we got the chance to stay there and like sleep there, and that was really, really epic, and like the stars there, and it was just probably my favorite property to shoot.
Is
at the
it
end.
a single family home?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember seeing it online, but
It's like an Airbnb.
Right. They were Airbnb. Yeah, I think Aaron Kerman was selling that at one or trying to. So picking up on these luxury homes that you guys have filmed, what's some of your favorite features?
You go first, right?
Favorite features. To be honest with you, they're all kind of like the same, more or less. Like they all have a theater and a rooftop
Right.
and a big, nice, luxurious kitchen, a living room, and a family room, and all this stuff. I would say like at 1200 Bel Air, we keep bringing that house up. It just was loaded with cool features.
Right.
The screen that came up from the pool, it was like
Right,
this like
right.
100-foot screen. It looked like it was just massive. That was really, really cool. The other, we've been in like houses like with bowling alleys in it, which was pretty cool. Yeah, at the end of the day, a house is a house. Like there's only so much that you can put into it.
Right.
There was like the one had like the theater, like the size of like an IMAX movie theater, which was
Wow.
pretty cool. But yeah, that would be my answer. I think.
I think at 777 Sorbonne, one, they had an infinity pool that just was like perfectly positioned to get like the view of like downtown, the mountains. You had like a perfect 180-degree view, which I was really into. And they also had a DJ lift, which was pretty cool. So like in the center of the house, it just had this platform that can like go up and like have a DJ playing in it, and it was like positioned for party house. I think actually the Powerball winner Edwin Castro bought that house recently. Won like
So I think
Yeah.
that's right.
I read an article about
we
it.
We actually put a video on YouTube on that.
yeah.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I hope he's throwing some big parties. The gun range at Flickr, which may or may not be legal, but it's
Just
definitely
bleep
cool.
it out, just bleep it out.
Yeah, it's a very, very cool feature, I think, in a house.
Yeah.
And then like some of the like staple properties we've done. The movie theater there was ridiculous. Like that, it looks like a commercial movie theater.
Right.
And the nightclub there was pretty cool. I like some of the party features. Not that I would ever use it, but I think it's pretty cool to have. And yeah, I think those are probably the best ones that I can remember off the top of my head.
Cool. Off the back of that, do you guys see yourself moving into larger scale productions such as documentaries, movies?
Yeah, we're definitely moving more in that direction. A lot more storytelling. Our business has been for the past almost 10 years has been all about like B-roll, music to video to music, music to video. It's been like very much like this story told through B-roll, and I think that we're slowly shifting towards more of having lifestyle on camera, having people speaking on camera. That's been like more of a there's more demand in the corporate space for that. And making films that actually document like a process of so someone just built out $1 billion hospitality project, like talking to a few guys that were involved in that process, making all the marketing and the branding for that building. We want to really become full service for these these larger companies that are bringing huge properties online. That's kind of the vision for it. And I think, leaning into some of the technology coming out and not just kind of getting caught in our own ways, like really the direction we want to take the business in.
Yeah, exactly what he said. I think it's like just being like a team that, these brands can trust to like put up all the marketing collateral that's needed, whether it's like campaigns, like marketing campaigns, for example, like the Ritz, right? Around the holidays, they have these like really cool Christmas themed, advertisements. And during, the Super Bowl, they might have like a Super Bowl commercial that ties into that theme. So doing a lot more brand work is something that we're finding ourselves enjoying lately. And just being full service, whether it's like the logo design of the building that's coming out, to the letterheads, to the pens that they need, to the shirts that they're wearing, like really being like a one-stop shop for marketing for all of these brands throughout all of their, projects. And that's really what we are at the core of it. Like OneShot Productions has always been like the one-stop shop for real estate, right? Video, photos, property, websites, just to tie it all together. That was how we started, and just delving into that concept because people loved it so much. Like the whole industry, us and a few other companies really put a lot of time and energy into kind of pushing that product where it's like a one package where you get everything, and just taking it one step further with that and offering our clients even more services, even more products to help them out and make things as streamlined as possible for them.
It's funny because we're getting into like, we've been in this business for a few years, and it feels like just now we're starting to get a better picture of like what we want to do. Like, you think at like year 2, year 3, you've been around for a while, you kind of know what your business is and where it's going. But like in our case, it feels like, we're just now starting to realize our direction, kind of maturing like as entrepreneurs and kind of figuring out, like what makes us tick, what makes the business tick, like kind of a synergy between what makes us happy and what makes us successful. And that's kind of where we're shifting towards right now. But
yeah, one of my favorite sayings it's a saying, but for business is do not mistake activity with productivity. Most people are busy just being busy. And I think a lot of people in business are that. They think because they spend 9 hours in the office or 10 hours in the office, they've done work. But really, at the end of the day, if they wanted to be honest with themselves, and sometimes I'm guilty of that, I come here, I sit around, and I leave the office, and I think to myself, how much productive work did I really actually do? Yes, I spent 9 hours at the office, but it's not 9 hours of work. It was really 2 or 3 hours of work. So,
yeah.
Guys, thank you so much for coming down. It's been an absolute pleasure, and hopefully we can do it again soon sometime.
Yeah, thanks
Sounds
for
great,
having us.
man.
Yes,
We had a
man.
great time.
Likewise.